I'm so happy to see a live conference, as Johannes said, because watching the 2D pictures only is kind of boring, and you don't see the people's body language, and actually you don't see what they are eating, drinking behind the computer, and how they act overall. But going to what I wanted to tell you is that don't pay too much attention to the presentation, because I just would like to talk you through what we are doing and how we have been doing. Something only about, very briefly about Hanza, Hanza Cluster Baltics. We have 2 factories here, yet. One is in Tartu with 500 people approximately, and one is in Narva with, by now, actually, I haven't updated my presentation because now it's 260 already. So, and hiring. And the total revenue is like 75-ish million euro for the 2 factories. And the difference is that the Tartu factory is making more, is kind of smaller and nicer and more complex products. Narva is the big and massive with big welders. We have like 80 welders plus and very big parts and so on. Noisy and sometimes a little bit stinky also. But we are developing in Narva as well. Here is the list of some of the customers, and Narva, I didn't manage to count, but in Tartu we are selling per year by now already somewhere around 6,500 different articles. Starting with tiny beanie, small things, and ending with big cabinets. And the beauty of Tartu, and actually you can read here, the slogan of Hanza is "all you need is one." And this is the beauty, that we are making sheet metal, we are making cables, we are making machining parts, all in one place, and then we are assembling it into products. So the orchestration of this magnitude of different articles is I would say, quite a challenge. When I joined Hanza like 6 years ago, then coming from electronics, we had thousands of components per one PCBA. But it was a piece of cake if you compare with the current production. No problem at all. Here are some of our products. Anybody recognizes anything? Yeah. Bravo.
That's all I can recognize.
What about this one?
A fridge.
No.
I was kidding.
No. Here is a hole, and you are putting something into this hole and then getting exactly a reverse vending machine. And the reverse vending machine is actually, every product is different project, because everything is depending on the size of the shop. So I have now already developed this kind of professional cretinism that walking into the shop, I'm taking a look at how many of those chambers are they having behind the hole. Because it can be up to 8 different chambers for bottles, cans, and so on and so on. So it's a really, really complex product, and we are doing all the sheet metal, all the cables, all the machining, and buying basically only those commodity stuff like those LED screens. This one is one of the flagships of the company. This is actually a baby blood analyzer. So you can put on this test paper the drops of the newborn baby blood and send it to the lab, and it's detecting during the first 10 days of the baby all those potential genetical sicknesses. It's like more than 2,000 components, and out of which more than 1,000 we are manufacturing ourselves. So summa summarum, this is called, for us, it's called All You Need Is One, but you can call it also sustainability. Because for the customers, instead of buying all those components with the minimum order quantities and the lead times and et cetera, we are manufacturing in place and assembling also in place. Now, did you understand the complexity? This is the C of the VUCA. Now, going onwards, we had this thing, yeah? In the beginning, it was something bad in China, and then suddenly, boom. But the bad in China was already bad for us because it stopped the life in China. And what do you think, how many components, purchased parts we are bringing from Asia Pacific? So, no, it's actually less because we are manufacturing so much on our own. But all those big factories in South China, which basically stopped. So you think that we actually don't need so many of those parts. It can be hundreds of parts. If you compare with the automotive industry with tens of thousands, then you think that it's easy kind of steal from the suppliers, and you know, a little bit. But it literally stopped. Then, in addition, this one happened. And then you think that, okay, it's one ship, so what? They are going to release it, and so on and so on. Do you know how many hundreds of ships were standing behind that bloody vessel? And then, when they freed it up, what happened? The ports couldn't receive those vessels anymore. They were standing behind the ports on the sea, waiting to offload. I can tell you that those suppliers who have traditionally been the weakest ones in my life, everybody told that their goods are on that ship. So I had to tell them that maybe you could kind of figure out something more interesting, or tell that, you know, it's waiting there behind that ship or anything else. No, it's on that ship. Everybody knew the name of the ship. Everybody, the whole world. And this is where we are. We are, but actually I must say that, you know, don't take me as a crystal ball person, but I have seen so many crises during my working years in this industry that I started to hammer the table already half a year before the guys, something is happening. Something is going on in the industry. The most vulnerable industries started to show this kind of we don't know, let's see, we don't see the market, and so on and so on. So this uncertainty was in the air already half a year before COVID. COVID was just a cherry on the cake. It would have been something else also. If it wasn't COVID, it would have been something else. I can bet on it. I can put half of my salary on that bet, which is not that big sum of money, but anyway. And here comes that you have to be so much on top of the toes all the time. Like Mr. Mayor said, that you cannot rest your case for a second. Because if you get very relaxed, then there are 5 competitors rushing by immediately. And B, this kind of unjustified relaxation is something which is the most dangerous thing in this industry. I can be the one who is spoiling the party and saying in the middle of the best months or quarter ever that, guys, I don't see the order book for the next quarter anymore on that level like it was, or something like this. But this is actually the biggest challenge, the biggest difficulty, but the biggest role of any leader is to be like half a year minimum ahead. You have to think ahead all the time. You have to be, and like they are saying that that a good owner is waiting for good times when it's really bad, and preparing for bad times when everything seems to be good. Too good to be true, like we're saying. In Estonian, of course, we have a really nice word like worrying, so we are worrying everything up to worrying kids and so on and so on. But anyway, you have to be prepared for the times changing. And this is, I couldn't show you the numbers, but this is how our order book looked like. And it's by customer. And we are not talking about 1-2 pieces or something like this. We are talking about tens and hundreds of thousands of euros. Some of the customers disappeared. In addition, all those home offices, I would say that the maximum time of home offices for the white collars in Hanza, what I could allow was 3 weeks. Then everybody was back. In the beginning, for 2 weeks, it was 50-50. 50 was at home, 50 was working, but actually then everybody into the office back. We got very early the vaccines, thank God, but the thing is that in this kind of world, and what I can see is how the efficiency of the companies is dropping when people are distributed by home offices. I can see it basically physically, even without the camera. You can hear somebody has 5 children screaming behind, somebody is making the lunch, somebody is doing the dishes, somebody is eating, somebody is doing whatever. And when we got back to the office, then I would say that the efficiency or this kind of focus and concentration on the work increased tremendously. And nobody can tell me that being at home office is more efficient and so on. Yes, time to time. I'm staying at home office also when I have to make a presentation or, do something which is needing focusing for more than half an hour and so on and so on. But in manufacturing industry, I would say that you have to be there to feel the pulse. Otherwise, you don't feel, you are losing the pulse. And this is what's happening to many of our Scandinavian customers. They haven't been in the bloody office for 1.5 years. I'm just doubting if they find their offices anymore, or do they have any offices anymore. So it's 20 times harder to get through the message and get through the whole input. Okay, but this is one of the most fun times in the whole period, because this is when people start to understand that the way they have been doing it all the time, which is the most killing sentence in the whole world, we have always been doing it like this. When I came to metal industry, I was told like 20 times per day. So I restricted that sentence totally. So the changes are the possibility for those ones who are not afraid of changes. This is the possibility to really do big things and step up and say that this is no way we are going to do it onwards. And some of the customers woke up and understood that bringing bits and pieces from Asia Pacific for, at the end of the day, maybe 5% less cost is maybe not the way we should do. It would be hard to list all those customers who are just now standing by because they are missing some components. You know what's happening in the automotive industry. You can get like, those Flintstone car, with the pedals and because no electronics. So if you agree to get a car and drive with open windows without AC and so on, then welcome. A hell of a lot of big machines are standing still because they don't get the electronics, but not only the electronics, they don't get the bloody mechanical parts which we could manufacture, but ramping up a mechanical part manufacturing is up to half a year. It's not like, you are putting it into the machine and it comes out in 3 minutes. So localization is the key word. And this shows to me how old I am already in this business, because I was the one who was setting up China sourcing and switching supply chains to China. I was the one who was bringing mechanical parts from China. I still have my suppliers in China asking that, do you still want mechanical parts? No, thank you. So the need to rethink the whole concept is in the air. And those ones who are sitting, and believe me, a big majority of companies are like frozen. I would say that I was lucky enough to participate in a session with the German Baltic Chamber of Commerce. And the Germans told that most of the German companies are basically frozen. They are like in the standby regime, waiting, maybe it passes by, maybe it goes away. And when it starts to turn, then you have to be, the biggest issue here is actually this one. You have to have the money to ramp up and very fast. And those ones who have reduced their labors, who have reduced their stocks, who have reduced everything in order to survive, most of those ones are not going to survive at all. So like, I took it as a compliment. We had just last week the visit of the board of directors of Hanza in Estonia, and the chairman of the board, an Italian guy who is, Italians, black or red, hate or love, and so on. We have passed all those stages, and he told that, Emöke, you are like a cork. The harder you push, I push you under the water, the bigger the plump is upwards. And I took it as a compliment, actually. So what I wanted to say is that somebody has to lead those people. If I'm chosen to do it, I'm going to do it. But somebody has to have the certain body parts, or the guts. In English, it's somebody has to have the guts to take decisions and push it through from very many instances, very many places, and so on and so on. And which is I hope that it's my positive side is that I'm half Hungarian, so I have maybe a little bit more temper than an average Estonian. So my people know already that, when you start to explain things, then things have to happen, and so on and so on. So you have to communicate all the time, and you have to show the people the hope that actually we are going to survive. Our slogan, or during the very, very hard times in the factory, my slogan was that we are going to make it. We are going to make it. And we made it. And then we took the next step, and so I told that we are going to make that one also. So it needs somebody who is collecting the people, but what what I have seen earlier in my life, and I saw a very good presentation at the Nordic Business Forum also. I'm sorry to say I forgot the name of the lady, but the teams have to be diverse. Diversity is something which has this way and that way and so on, but people have to be different. And I'm always trying to hire people who are compensating my weaknesses or somebody else's weaknesses. So we have in the typical management meeting, I would say that we have fierce arguments. But this is the thing where you get this not simply nodding. Actually, if somebody is nodding all the time, then for me it's a signal I don't care. If somebody is saying yes all the time, then either he or she wants to be on my place, which is, I would say that time to time it can be a misery. So think once again. But the thing is that we need to have the arguments. Only this way we can get to some kind of results or test out some kind of aspects which nobody has been thinking about. You know, my best customer, let's say account manager in common language, we call it different, but account manager. I hired him from a restaurant, and he was the chief waiter in one of my favorite restaurants. And why did I hire him? Because he had this unbelievable touch on how he should act with the customers. Sometimes he was more familiar. Sometimes when he saw with whom I'm coming, although he didn't know who they are, he was keeping the distance like this. He was always having the right angle how to handle my company so that everybody was satisfied. Now he is handling the most critical customer so that the customer who was screaming once or twice per week and calling me, I haven't heard about that customer for half a year. So these kind of different people, and I don't need only engineers, because engineers have the engineer thinking. I need people who are able and happy to develop the company together with me. And they are different. They are so different because one company I saw was, the management team was approximately the same age, approximately the same background, and they were so happy to tell everybody how happy they are and how well they are working together that, let's say so, that the company was barely saved just before bankruptcy. Because they didn't have this healthy argument, this healthy discussions and so on. Of course, time to time it's my decision how we are going to go onwards, but very often it's so that we are voting. And if it's even, then the side where I am is going to win. Otherwise, I'm going to lose. That's it. And this is where we came. This is all done during the last 1.5 years. On the top, this is how the Narva factory yard was looking like. And this is how it's looking like now. Makes a difference? The factory was losing money. What do you think how much trust I had to have from my management in order to get money to do all this? How much confidence in the future that it's still worth of it? And of course, my biggest dream. This is going to be ready by the end of the year. 6 years ago, it's 12,000 square meters. We are moving from an ugly 4th floor building in the center of Tartu. By the beginning of next year, we are moving into this building. And this was also given during the worst COVID stage. Because, again, the company and the management of the company believed that the path where we are moving is right, the customer segments are okay, even if somebody is dropping, somebody is increasing, but we are doing okay. And there is a hope in the whole setup that people who can work in this kind of environment are the biggest messengers or the biggest advocates of the company. I don't need a PR person per se, because in Tartu I have 500 people, in Narva 250, and if they are saying that it's an okay company to work, never ever everybody is fully satisfied, and people are moving and so on, and it's okay. But until we are moving into this direction, then my final statement is that COVID time has been really hard, but in a way we are not virus-proof, but we are kind of bulletproof on the many different challenges of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emöke. Have you ever thought about career in the stand-up industry? Stand-up comedy, I mean, you would be great. Can I ask you to just have a seat? I mean, after retirement, of course, from the big business.
Yeah, of course, and actually I think that if you take the hardest parts of life with a smile and you are able to joke on it, then this is actually stand-up comedy.
It's really enjoyable. I didn't know actually work in the manufacturing industry can be so much fun. The way you described it, I mean.
Absolutely. I can describe it for an hour and then I'm going to do the rest, you know.
So we have received a few questions from the audience. I'm going to start with the ones from Slido. So how does it differ preparing for good and bad times when you don't really know whether it gets worse or better? Do you have a gut feeling about like when to spend more money for, I don't know, pumping up your manufacturing, or when you should start saving up for the really bad times to come?
Actually, you know, it's called gut feeling, but I'm calling it experience. Because when you have seen a couple of crises since 2000 something in the manufacturing, starting with I remember with the lack of tantalum capacitors in electronics and so on, then it needs communication, and you actually read it out from the body language of the people. And when I was working in global sourcing, then the way how people are moving on the production floor, they can show me whatever slides, but when I walk on the floor and see the body language and see the total picture, then more or less you get the idea how the company looks like. So it's simply experience.
I mean, during COVID times, you said that you were giving motivational speeches and saying to people that, no, we will get over it. Mm-hmm. Was there a time when you thought that, no, this is over, we're not going to get over it?
No.
Never?
Honestly.
No.
Because the thing is that we have you saw that we have a large diversity of customers. And actually there were customers who were ramping up like 300%. And we got some really nice praises and statues from the customers for being able to ramp up so fast and so on and so on. So it's there is always hope. I have seen so many tragedies in my personal and professional life that I would say that there is always some kind of hope.
Localization is the big word these days, right? And we have a question from Slido on that. If it's time to reduce dependence of long distance, let's say Chinese goods, then what would be the new close place or area that could take it over either partly or fully?
It can be depending on the company, but if the main manufacturing is in Europe, it can be basically anywhere in Europe. But the biggest thing is that you are not buying, for example, machine parts from Bulgaria, sheet metal from Poland, cables from Slovakia, and so on and so on. The less you are shipping parts around, the smaller is the whole footprint, and that's the essence, because those shipping screws and nuts and bolts and up to huge empty frames around Europe, it doesn't make sense anymore, because the labor cost is so similar already, and you can find somewhere in very South Europe you can find maybe cheaper labor, but very often the infrastructure and actually also the qualification is the key word. So
no more offshoring, it's nearshoring or
I
onshoring.
don't think so. I don't think.
That's
so
the future.
It's actually now China is manufacturing for Chinese market. And it's moving from the coastal region also into the inland. Europe is much more and more focusing on manufacturing in Europe, and so does America.
It's a great opportunity for Estonian business, Estonian manufacturers. I was just hosting a debate on local elections from Narva yesterday. So I mean, I don't think the people, the politicians there really understand the potential what Narva can have. I mean, with all the industry parks being built, with all the promotion for Scandinavian entrepreneurs to bring the business there. Do you really see Narva has that potential?
Absolutely. I'm spending so much time in Narva and having seen the business parks and so on. And I was a little bit angry because they mentioned only this yellow color company, which I don't mention, but they never spoke about Hanza. So I was like, and I know Katri Raik pretty well. So
you should ask her over to the factory.
Yeah, absolutely.
To remind her that
because,
this is the real
because
deal
the president was there, but
Yeah.
she hasn't been. So it's but the potential is really great. And one more thing, what I can say is that it's my solid understanding that those people are very, very, very good in manufacturing. I have much less trouble with those people than I have had in different other places and countries. So actually, I would say that working in Narva with the Narva people is really a pleasure.
So we're going to see huge economic growth in Estonia soon in the manufacturing business.
I hope so. If the government also understands that industry is actually a big thing and industry is giving a lot of GDP, so now we are lobbying heavily at the government, but until we are saying that only IT and startup is the key word, then... but we are working really hard, because I really think that we can, in that meaning, we can be kind of like a Switzerland of Scandinavia. We have the skills, we have the potential, we have the working ethic, and I don't think that in anything, and we have been investing, at least in Tartu, we have been investing into machines which are not less than 500,000 per, and we are buying 2-3 machines per year.
We're going to have Tarmo from the logistics sector speaking next. I mean, what does that mean for logistics if we're like losing or skipping offshoring and moving the production to Europe, a lot of it to Estonia? What does it mean for the logistics sector? Good news for them or bad news?
I think that is good and bad. They have to figure out how to make it more efficient. I don't think that those 20-ton trucks are the future of the logistics, because you need to have it greener footprint, and you simply don't have drivers. You don't have enough truck drivers.
Well, we saw what's happening in the UK. It's quite...
Exactly.
In a way, it's amusing. Brexit means Brexit, right?
It's really Brexit.
Let's talk a bit about leadership also. So What kind of new requirements do you think modern leaders have during those times where uncertainty is everywhere? Now, you mentioned a few, but is there really a change of concept of good entrepreneurship, good leadership?
Yeah, I would say that it's becoming much more humane, and it's like I saw a presentation from Simon Sinek, who I really like, and he was saying that what kind of soft skills are we talking about, and I have been told many times also that. That being a non-engineer, how can I lead an engineering company, and you don't know anything about sheet metal and you don't know anything about machining, and I told that look, even if I was an engineer, you cannot be an engineer on everything, and it's much more about collecting the right people. And when we are talking, and we are talking much more about leadership, even in the military, not only in this kind of maybe a little bit softer companies or something like this, but it's more about collecting the right people and giving the right way to go, instead of boom giving the orders, and of course taking the responsibility. So actually, when earlier I imagine it so that when earlier the manager was going in the front and then everybody was marching behind the manager, now the leader is walking in the back and pushing, the people into the right direction.
Now, you mentioned that you don't really have much faith in remote work. Things can become dodgy and weird, right? With all the dishwashing in the background and not real a lot of productivity. But I mean, at the same time, research has shown that many people are not ready to come to the office and do prefer work remotely. Now, I mean, how do you solve this situation? COVID brought us this new um, work culture. Do you think that it's still good to keep it in some fields, and it's not just suitable for every part of the industry, or are you still
I
skeptic
actually
about it?
think that it's not suitable for the industry per se. It might be suitable because I'm still a Talliner, and I'm moving between Tallinn, Tartu, and Narva constantly, and I can see some public offices which are dark from morning to evening and evening to morning, and I know some people in the public areas who haven't been in the office for 2 years or something. But I would say I didn't have any resistance. On the contrary, for example, those people who are working for Tartu and Narva and sitting mostly in Narva, they feel the urge to spend like half of the time in Narva to feel the pulse and feel the beat in Narva as well. So it's totally different, and I think that we are kind of different people in the industrial area. I would say that most probably I couldn't survive in a public office for more than 3 weeks. They would eat me alive, or I would make a revolution or something like this. So it's
An interesting experiment, though.
I have had it in my very young period, and I had the difficulty to line up the pencils into the right row from morning to evening. So
Oh, that
it's
sounds terrible. I'm glad you're not in that industry anymore, or in that business. Emöke, we're discussing productivity, and I mean, productivity is nothing that we can be terribly proud in Estonia. We're going to take up that topic in the panel also, but is there actually another, do we have another option other than digitalization and closer cooperation with universities to boost innovation, to boost productivity? What's your vision on that?
I have two things actually. One thing is that um, the calculation of productivity, or actually in this area, I have two major issues. When somebody is stepping up and saying that we are the country of cheap subcontracting, then this is why I'm always showing those products that show me one of them which is cheap. The price is starting like from 20,000 euros per each.
Maybe you're just an exception.
I don't think so. And the productivity is also, it's actually the calculation of the productivity versus how we are on spot calculating it. It's not matching. And of course, we need much more automation, let's say, from the point of robots per capita or per country. Of course, we are really falling behind. But looking at those products again, I have nowhere to use those robots because they are so specific that they have to be assembled manually. And so these high-flying words are pronounced by people who have never seen the actual production and have never seen the actual what we are producing. So I would like to have a real debate with those people who are, slamming with the words which are insulting actually people like ourselves.
So you think the statistics has it wrong? The productivity in Estonia is actually much higher than we have thought.
I actually do.
Well, that's in a way good news. Maybe not for the ones keeping the books on statistics, but good news for the industry.
we are actually having a debate with the Office of Statistics also, because the problem is that they are demanding all kind of data which we have to collect manually very often, but I'm not getting back the data. So it's also kind of a debate that people, it's like it should be a win-win, not only that we are filling and if you are one day late, then you get a letter that you are obliged and you have to and we are going to punish you and so on and so on. No. This is not the way how we are working.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I let Emöke go, maybe you have questions because we have to celebrate this getting together in one physical space, as we were also happy before. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand. There's a question here. Can we also have a microphone for the gentleman?
Thank you for interesting conversation. And you actually discussed this offshoring and supply chain, but I have still a bit provocative question. So imagine that maybe after 20 years, labor costs in Estonia and in Finland are equal. And will such plants still exist in Estonia, or they will move to some other country?
I would hope that we are moving upper and upper on the value-add ladder. Like in Finland, there is a lot of industry. In Finland is full of industry, but they are on high level ladder. And I hope also that we are not willing to produce only sheet metal parts anymore. No, we want to produce and then assemble and so on and more. For some of those products, actually, we are the only manufacturer in the world, although the owner is somewhere else. So the more this kind of smart manufacturing we get, the more I don't, because the labor cost is a very small part of this whole manufacturing.
So you don't think Estonia will lose its competitiveness? We will just step up in the value chain and assemble or be involved in assembling higher price products?
Producing more complex products, and I'm, like I told, I'm in this way I'm an eternal optimist. Otherwise, I should quit like immediately, because if you go in front of your people and say that, guys, there is no hope anymore, then I think that
Anyone else has a question for Emöke? Yes, go ahead. There's a microphone here for you too.
Thank you for the presentation. Sorry, could you tell me, for example, you say it's you need more innovation for the manufacturing, yeah? But our students from any kind of universities, we have ideas, we have prototypes, But problem is we don't have that much specialists, because specialists they are too much busy, how they are saying. They have a lot of projects, they have a lot of work. Could you tell me how can we contact you to maybe develop our products together? Because it will make manufacturing faster for you, and for us it will realize our potential.
You can always contact Hanza. You will find it on the homepage. But here I need to say once again is that we don't have our own products. And we are not developing and we are not aiming to develop our own products. And very often where we cannot help the students is that they have their own ideas to develop something which is not our profile. So you have to, and I'm such an old school person, sorry to say, but first of all, to many students I'm saying that first of all, you have to learn together with us the basics. And then you can fly and start to develop your own products, not to come directly from school and say that, you know, I want to develop my own products. But for learning, and we have our mentoring system, we have our learning system, you are very welcome to come.
So I'm going to take one last question, if there is a question in the hall. Emöke, you have said it all. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Applause.
Thank you very much.